So why is this the case? Why did Fiore have to go through this entire legal process to actually get her fan fiction published? Well, we could blame the big mouth himself, Disney. So let's blame actually these people first. So a group of underground comic book artists called the Ear Pirates, they decided to publish their own little series of comics called the Ear Pirates, kind of, mocking the Disney characters. As artists, it was their right, they believed, to, make a satire of what was seen as pure Americana capitalism of that period. And back then, it was still, Disney as well. So they made their own little series of comics with Mickey and Minnie and all the Disney characters doing like lewd adult things. Of course, Disney did not like this, brought this to court. You had arguments on both sides. The Ear Pirates argued, hey, we are basically doing a parody of what is a symbol. Mickey Mouse is a symbol. I think we're in the legal right, and most people today would actually argue they were technically in the right. However, Disney would argue Mickey is more than just one of our characters. It's our brand, our icon, a representation of our company. If one of your comics is picked up by a kid, they read this and then they show it to their parents, who are their parents going to blame? They're not going to complain to you. They're going to see Mickey Mouse and automatically identify it with us, and they're going to come and sue us. So to protect our brand image, we have to, fight this in court. And the judge ruled on the side of Disney, and that's actually why, that's the argument you see a lot of companies using today, everything from Hasbro to Warner Brothers to Marvel, all using the exact same arguments. But it was mainly Disney that was really, really influential on pushing the extension to a lot of these copyright laws. In fact, some people even call the Copyright Extension Acts the Mickey Mouse Copyright Protection Act, because every time it seems like Steamboat Willie is about to enter public domain, Disney goes to court and fights it and pushes it back, another few decades. In fact, Steamboat Willie is going to come into public domain finally next year. And at that point, it's all fair game, and Disney said we're not going to fight it this time. But important thing to note, the Mickey Mouse that's coming to public domain is the Steamboat Willie Mickey, not the Mickey that we know and love today. So for example, in a few more years, Superman's going to come into public domain, but it's not going to be the Superman that can fly, shoot lasers, fight Lex Luthor came from Krypton. It's the original OG Superman that could jump very high and run very fast, but not the Superman that we kind of know and love today. So, well, what's interesting about that is I think Disney is also trying to get around this. Have you noticed the opening title credits for almost every single Disney film, aside from the traditional Cinderella Castle now, they have a Steamboat Willie as the opening title animation? It's a way for them to try to use Steamboat Willie now as one of their, branding. So they're going to try to fight it. So we'll see what happens when Steamboat Willie comes into public domain next year. Thus adds a hidden layer of political commentary, changing the entire context of the story. And thus, even though it's retelling the exact same story, is telling it from a new perspective, and thus allowed to be published because it was transformative in that case. Look, so we just looked at court cases. What happened if we hold franchise holders to the exact same, requirements? So we were showing the court cases where some fan fictions were allowed to be published and some were denied. I would argue if we hold the franchise holders to the exact same requirements, most modern stories, movies, TV shows, reboots, and retcons will not fall under the exact same definition. So when you retell a retelling of a retelling over and over again, as both Grant Morrison and Neil Gaiman say, it's basically photocopying a photocopying of photocopy. You photocopy so many times, it degrades itself. Again, I'm a genetic biologist. What happens when you inbreed over and over and over again? You get some ugly looking offspring, and that's what's happening with a lot of these franchises.
You get the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yes. So you have, recently in the news, it is very clearly evident that these copyright holders, these corporations, have no rights in helming some of these properties. Seeing how Warner Brothers has been treating their works like the Coyote movie and the the new Batgirl movie, it's obvious they do not have respect for their own properties. And the argument for why these copyright laws are in place is because it's protecting their creators. But are they really protecting their creators? Going back to the comic book industry, if we look at some of the most influential figures, Siegel and Schuster, the creator of Superman and basically the entire modern superhero template, they basically died penniless. Really, really pale imitations, and most of the times it's very offensive because a lot of these creators were neither asked to come back or gave their express permission for these works to be done. So it's not that, the companies that own the franchises are always producing bad works. Sometimes they can produce some, interesting gems. But the problem is, you can also say that the fans are not going to produce good works as well. Because of the state of modern fan fiction, the problem is now that fan fiction is not allowed to be published legally without going through a lot of horrible, big court processes, most fan fiction is now written for small insular circles. So this is where people are going to write, their own favorite kings, their own favorite ships, even if they're really unpopular. They're going to have their own self-insert characters. So these are stories written for smaller and smaller groups of people. They no longer have big universal message or trying to change the games. And because of that, this is where we get, the Mary Sue style fan fictions with the self-insert characters. And people trying to publish this, it's not going to be on the same level of James Joyce Ulysses. And we have perfect examples of this. How many times have we seen public domain characters have really, really horrible spin-off stories? A good example is Winnie the Pooh just recently entered public domain, and the things we are now seeing done with Winnie the Pooh are just as bad, if not worse, from what the franchise holders are doing. So it's not that the fans are also good as well. So there has to be a balance for all this.
Quick comment here. We're not saying your fan fiction is bad.